The boogeyman of gaming, the Embracer Group, is dead? Interesting.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today, we've got pretty massive changes in the industry. Here's the deal. Embracer Group is functionally dead. This is the company that became Embracer Group in 2019, and it grew from acquiring the wreckage of THQ, and then it springboarded into one of the largest gaming companies in Europe by spending the next 4 years acquiring developers and acquiring IP. I mean, hell, for our studio, we even had somebody from Embracer Group in our city of Belfast come to our office, and we all had a chat, including stuff like how money is just everywhere and they're gobbling everything up, of course, for long-term security. Only a few months after that, it all started to go to shit. Management frame what is happening today as a glorious next step towards an ideological goal. But, of course, the fall of the Embracer...
An ideological goal? That's strange. What I remember about the Embracer Group is that everyone was mad because this evil corporation swooped in and bought up a lot of smaller gaming developing studios that produced masterpieces that somehow didn't sell well. And Yong was extremely mad about the fact that Embracer Group bought studios with IPs that he had heard about, and then they fired a bunch of people and tried to make these companies profitable, and that was evil. Imagine that. They bought up companies and said, yeah, we're gonna try and make these companies profitable for the investors. Man, the most evilest thing I had heard in all my life, honestly. It was terrible.
Embracer Group is the result of its own hubris, basically screwing it over, and it is a lesson in how consolidation can in fact be pretty bad, and how a lot of this stuff, a lot of what they were pursuing, it was...
Yeah, consolidation can fail. That's the thing that happens in the real world. Again, if Embracer Group fails, they fail. But in general, what Embracer Group did, as far as I understand from everything that I heard, is not actually a bad thing. They took studios that were at the last bit of the rope, and they bought them up, fired a bunch of people, and tried to make them to make games that they once were known for doing. And again, that's not a bad thing.
It was just a growth model that had no good end. Unlike, of course, today's sponsor. We're going to be leveling up in real life with brilliant.org/belly.
Amazing.
Another developer or big company, those are probably over, because reading in between the lines of the company's new statements, the whole concept of a mega publisher comprising of hundreds of different developers and IP basically became so unwieldy that they couldn't sustain themselves any further, so they won't. And because of that, they have announced that they'll be splitting into 3 separate companies. Each one will be focusing on a separate part of the industry. To just quote from them, this move is...
Is that bad? That sounds like a reasonable thing to do. That sounds what most big companies, if not all of them, do, in fact.
Been made with the intention to unleash the full potential of each team and provide them with their own leadership and strategic direction. And what Lars goes on to say in this quote is just hilarious to me. This is the start of a new chapter, a chapter that I intend to remain part of as an active, committed and supportive shareholder of all 3 new entities with an evergreen horizon. Maybe, Lars, some would even say it's a blue ocean opportunity. The move towards 3 independent companies reinforces Embracer's vision of backing entrepreneurs and creators with a long-term mindset, allowing them to continue to deliver unforgettable experiences for gamers and fans across the globe. So I do love there how, Lars is talking about a long-term mindset and how everybody from that company was talking long-term until, they messed up their finances, they were irresponsible, and then what did they do? Well, all of those long-term things kind of went away, and there were massive job cuts, waves of projects being cancelled, so really it's...
Wait, as much as I understand that job cuts and whatnot were just because they take over the company and they fire the people that they didn't see value in because they were not making anything at the time. Again, all of this kind of sounds reasonable and to be expected, from my opinion, from business. It just makes sense. Yeah, you kind of do these things. And if you need new people, you just kind of hire new people. And splitting up into 3 different groups makes sense, because you can't have the same guy who's, making Counter-Strike 3 be the head of the same people who are making, Against the Storm 2. That does not work out well, typically. So, again, I'm not sure what's happening. Are they even actually dead?
It's only a long-term strategy whenever it suits them. Now,
but yes, basically what the Embracer Group did was risky, because they were gobbling up a lot of things. And obviously when you gobble up so many things, statistically it can't all work out. Statistically, a lot of the things you gobble up are probably going to be just, repackaged and resold, because they most likely can't make new things, honestly. So, this is a very interesting situation.
Now, another thing that this will helpfully do is, get rid of the name Embracer Group, because I'm pretty sure we all know that Embracer Group is a toxic brand at this stage. You might be wondering then, with Embracer Group being dead, what happens to all of the devs and all of the IPs? Well, basically, there is still some work to do on what studios will be going to each of the companies, but the biggest players in each arm of their business have been decided. And the plan is they basically just get to be part of the most stupidly named gaming companies probably in the whole space. So let's go through that. First up, and the most cleanly, we've got Asmod. They're a tabletop games company that were acquired in 2022, and they will now return to being their own company under their own leadership within the next 12 months. So that's probably good for them. Now, they're still going to be
Okay, what he just said is not even remotely true. If the Embracer Group splits in 3 parts, they just took this company that seemingly was either the biggest or had the most critical acclaim or were in the best position and, probably made the best stuff, if my assumption is correct. And then they're just gonna lead the design decisions and the direction that these smaller companies are gonna go in. And that's fine. That is normal. Again, I am not seeing any red flags here. I am not seeing anything outside of the norm. And this is what I would actually want. If I was an investor in this is kind of what I would be okay with.
Within the next 12 months. So that's probably good for them. Now, they're still going to be public, but this actually was one of the most consistently well-performing branches of Embracer till now. The Asmod leadership is not changing. Key individuals are being promoted to basically new leadership sort of board positions, good. Right? So that does all seem good. However, a lot of the things that they would have had access to, they may no longer, have, because the likes of, say, the Lord of the Rings IP, they're not going to be getting access to that at Embracer Group, mates rates between themselves, because Lord of the Rings is staying with Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends, which is the company that will now be renamed from Embracer, and that is actually what it's called. Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends. That is
the stupidest name I have heard. That is true.
Very, very bizarre thing. And as Danny Owire, of course, he runs
Also, what do you mean? Bruh. So, if Embracer Group is splitting in 3 companies, you know what that means? That means that this part that does the tabletop shit still is under this company right here. You know what they're gonna do? This is the big one. This is the one that actually controls all of the other 3 things. So, Embracer Group is one of the big 3 subsidiaries that Embracer Group has now. So Asmodee is gonna be the leader of these things, and it's gonna answer to Embracer Group. One of the things that they're gonna do is, so first of all, this is false. Embracer Group, if they still have the opportunity to do stuff with Lord of the Rings IP, they can just, for free, give it at any moment to the Asmodee Group when they please. But most likely what's going to happen here is that the Asmodee Group is going to have to buy the license from the Embracer Group, because that makes the business more profitable, because there's bigger cash flow and whatnot. So that is one thing that's going to happen. So they don't lose the rights to Lord of the Rings if this company has it. They're just gonna buy it for a sum of money that doesn't even matter because it's their own money, but they just get to put on the books that they are profitable, at least in some way, probably. That's what's happening here. Is this complete bunk, by the way, and in my opinion should be illegal for companies to do to increase their own value through such artificial means? Yes. Will that happen? No, because then all the big companies in the world collapse because Twitch is buying things from Amazon and so on to increase the money flow. Not good.
The company that will now be renamed from Embracer, and that is actually what it's called, Middle-earth Enterprises. Bizarre thing. And as Danny Owire, of course, he runs NoClip amongst other things. So he says, if they imagine putting friend in the name is going to enamor people to the megacorp, they clearly weren't listening to 3 years of people being rightfully creeped out by the Embracer group. Because, yeah, it did kind of turn out that their loving embrace, in fact, meant loads of job layoffs, project cancellations, and
yes, and all of that makes sense, Bellier.
Destruction. And really, when you look at this, it's a level of playing fast and loose with brands that to me is, it just feels kind of manipulative and disgusting. And that's also kind of sad because, I mean, look, Lord of the Rings is one of my all-time favorite properties. Hasn't always been treated the best in video games, but there are a few hits from a while back. Now, this is what they're framing it as. A creative powerhouse in the AAA game development and publishing space for PC and console, as well as the stewards of the Lord of the Rings and Tomb Raider intellectual properties, among many others. So that's the strange thing, because whenever you think Lord of the Rings and Friends, I mean, do you also think of Dead Island 2, Killing Floor, Metro? I mean, no, you really don't. Like, that is just a goddamn bizarre brand. Now, there is good stuff there. Like, the Metro games, I think, are absolutely stellar. Lord of the Rings, I love that. Another part of this wing is Kingdom Come Deliverance, and of course, they have just recently announced Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Basically, the sequel is going to be moving into that, like, larger, more cosmopolitan city environment, still, of course, in that historical setting. To me, that is extremely exciting, in the same way that the promise of the initial game was. So, yeah, there's actually a lot of really good stuff in this group. As for studios they're keeping, they've got Crystal Dynamics and they've got Eidos Montreal. They've got Dambuster Studios. So Dambuster recently did Dead Island 2. You've got Flying Wild Hog, of course, Shadow Warrior. You've got Tripwire, which is Killing Floor. Vertigo Games, who are Arizona Sunshine. That is the zombie VR game. Warhorse Studios, who do Kingdom Come Deliverance. And 4A Games, the makers of Metro. So broadly what this basically is you might remember the name Deep Silver from games. It's basically them with free mode also being included, which is a retro games team, some tech teams, and also limited run games, as well as Dark Horse Media, comics, and all of that. Now, some of this will depend, of course, on whether Saber Interactive exercises some of their purchase options. And of course, that's referring to Saber splitting off from Embracer, which is a thing that we talked about a while ago. If you look at all of this, you can basically see what the plan is, though. This Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends, basically it's AAA games with very desirable IP, and then you got the likes, of course, of Dark Horse to help,
So, effectively also what this allows them to do is secure investment from outside sources in 3 ways. Because if you're just Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends, you can... Well, actually 4 ways, right? Because they have 3 subsidiaries at this point. So they can go around getting investment with the name Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends and say, oh, look at this, we have tabletop games, we have Lord of the Rings, Metro, blah, blah, blah. And maybe they secure some funding through that way. And all of these branches, by the way, can also secure funding for themselves and say, hey, we do this, invest in us, and blah, blah, blah. So this kind of gives them a bigger chance to get investment because, now there's 4 parts that can get investment instead of 1, which is technically better. And all of these companies by themselves can also, by the way, acquire investment, even though that's probably not what they're going to do with this company structuring. So, they have more. Now, will Embracer Group actually implode? That is a chance, because they still need to provide games. And this is, it currently looks like they're just diversifying to acquire as much investment from, well, I don't even know, venture capitalism, whatever they can find, and then they hope that something sticks. And if something sticks, that's good. If they make the new hit, then obviously they're gonna work out. But no matter what happens, do they produce good games or bad games? Most likely in a couple of years, you're gonna see them either sell off certain parts of all of this, or just maybe close certain branches off. Because again, this is how businesses work. Remember when Trump first became a notable person in the vast majority of the public eye, and people were thinking, oh, Trump has like 50 things that shut down. He has 50 businesses. That's not a bad thing. That is not a bad thing, especially when you look into how those businesses function. That is not a bad thing at all. And people were like, oh, 50 things shut down. No, you're an idiot if you're yelling that. You don't understand how these things work. In no way was any of that bad that it shut down. And it's the same is going to probably happen to this thing in 3 or 4 or 5 or how many years. They're going to maybe even shut down a full branch of whatever they have and just sell it off. In fact, that is the most likely scenario of what's going to happen.
Licensing and just all those things that Dark Horse do. And they do actually have some pretty good established relationships. As an example, right? There's some stuff with Microsoft, with the likes of Crystal Dynamics. Do you remember the Microsoft quadruple A studio? I think it was called The Initiative, which also sounds really sus. But The Initiative was basically a total shit show, and they kind of threw in the towel and basically said, we can't do this ourselves. Hey, Crystal Dynamics, could you come in and basically do the bulk of the development? There's also the Amazon deal that exists, which is for, well...
Yeah, and again, people give Microsoft also shit. Oh, the game cloud thing didn't work. Oh, this didn't work. And yet they're still fucking printing money like there's no tomorrow. You need to understand, with companies like this, Microsoft can fail at this point now that 9 out of 10 times, but that one time that it's gonna succeed in whatever they're designing or making, they're gonna wipe the slate completely clean for the 9 fails. And in fact, they can probably do like 49 fails out of 50 and still make good profit. That's how these things work. For them, the risk of not making a new thing is bigger than the risk of losing the money in that they invest in making a new thing.
Lord of the Rings, funnily enough, and also Tomb Raider. That being said, after watching The Rings of Power, I think there's a lot of really good production designers. I think some people love cinematography, and there's some pretty good special effects. Writing and creative vision? Nah, I don't think they've got that for The Lord of the Rings over at Amazon, and that, in fact, may be the most important part. In theory, this is just stuff being lopped off into its own new group, and really a lot of businessy things shouldn't change that much. They basically just won't have profits from their really big releases going into, like, maybe AA's, indie teams, and investments. What about the rest, then? Well, there's a home for them as well, and that is Coffee Stain and Friends, who are being spun off in 2025. Now, Coffee Stain, let's be real, they're a pretty damn legit bunch. Here's the description. A diverse gaming entity with a dual focus on indie and A/AA premium and free-to-play games for PC, console, and mobile with a high degree of recurring revenues. That all sounds disgusting. When you look at Coffee Stain, though, you've got Teardown, you've got Satisfactory, Valheim,
Holy, they have Deep Rock, Valheim, Gold Simulator. Don't know what this is. Satisfactory, don't know what that is. But these 3 are already hits. So if Embracer has this, they can probably secure a lot of investment, I'm assuming.
Deep Rock, Wreckfest, they do actually have quite a lot of, again, pretty legit things. So essentially what this is the kind of everything else that is staying, right? So on the premium side, you got Coffee Stain, that's, you know, Goat Sim, Satisfactory, Ghost Ship Games, who do Deep Rock Galactic. There's also Deep Rock Survivors, which has done extremely well. Tarsier, who did Little Nightmares, Tuxedo Labs, who do Teardown, Iron Gate, who are the devs of Valheim. Valheim, by the way, has a pretty exciting update on its PTR. Basically, they're testing the most dangerous biome they've made yet, so that seems pretty cool. And they've got, of course, a bunch of licensed properties and the THQ library that is staying under THQ Nordic, and then Amplifier Game Invest is covering.
Okay, now this part actually sounds pretty decent. Okay, so Embracer Group is not dead at all. They're thriving now. Where can I invest in Embracer Group? That's my question. Honestly, everything I'm hearing sounds pretty good. Everything I'm hearing, now admittedly it's a coin flip still at the end of the day, because what they're doing, I agree with. It sounds reasonable. It sounds like smart decision making. It sounds like good diversification where they actually need it. But, you know, again, it's all going to depend on, do they produce good games? And the reality is, AAA studios produce shit games time after time. I mean, Starfield, Diablo 4, Redfall, so many examples of complete trash, right? But if they succeed in producing a single hit game, even, it's they're completely Gucci.
The smaller indie side of things. You then have also got the likes of, say, your Star Trek, you've got Neverwinter Nights, the MMO, Underdeca, and Cryptic.
Oh.
So basically a lot of successful things, very much including the likes of Deep Rock Galactic, which is doing pretty damn well in terms of live ops. Ostensibly, this, you could say this is the platonic ideal of what the Embracer Group was supposed to be. Lots of developers putting their talents and resources together to punch above their weight, while, we basically get to go look at the three groups and see who has the highest earnings, which we can do, and is kind of fun. If you look at the group financials here along these splits, you can basically see the plan is to keep the companies even. I mean,
it's in sec, who cares? Does this sum up everything, though? That's the question. 6.6, 7, 10, 11, more. It's more. So how... HQ. Is that HQ Nordic, or what is this supposed to be? Middle Earth is... Oh, wait, that was one of their... No! I don't get it. No, wait, no. So, Middle Earth was an actual part of Embracer Group. That's what I'm currently kind of getting here. So, yeah, this is the full thing. Okay. I mean, honestly, things like EBIT don't fucking even matter most of the time. They can be ignored in these conversations. I mean, yeah, sure. This doesn't look that bad.
And when you look at the net sales, you can see they're all between like 10 and 13 billion Swedish krona. So, yeah, they've kind of divided this stuff up surprisingly well. So you can basically see how it's a divvying up of things that I think...
The divvying up part doesn't matter again. The fact that they divvy up this part right here doesn't matter in that sense. It's just investment securing and risk management.
Basically see how it's a divvying up of things that I think as an audience member does make sense, and if you were thinking in an investment way, that also I think broadly does make sense, right? That could make each one of these fairly investable, maybe more investable than Embracer Group as a whole, if you're maybe thinking that this will then lead to a better management structure and companies that are more focused along their core competencies. Now,
well, this is proven to lead to a better management structure because all big companies do this because it's impossible for one person to organize all of it.
Something they're doing to likely, again, like bolster that investor sentiment is Lars. He's basically remaining a 20% capital owner, 40% vote owner for Embracer, and that seemingly just gives him a very significant interest in all three of these companies. Obviously, if Lars just yoked himself away with a lot of money, that would be pretty worrying to people. This is all abstract stuff, right? This is all, legal entities. At the end of the day, what are these? I mean, these are developers with,
But Lars can't probably do that. Unless he wants to be investigated for fraud, that is. It's really hard to be such a major investor, speak for the company, divide it to seem more appealing to outside investment sources and the revenue streams, and then fucking dip. You're probably gonna be investigated for fraud.
Computers and IP and servers and offices and stuff like that.
And it's probably not going to end well for you also.
That. How this actually shakes out obviously completely depends on regular people actually just going and doing their job. You could say in an ideal world that there's not going to be much change for these companies going forward because they've essentially already incurred like the wrath of the Savvy Games Group deal falling apart. That led to Saber going, it led to Gearbox going, and of course now it has led to this. So I suppose the massacre's already happened. You would then hope that this restructure...
Yeah, but you expect the massacre because it's a part of the restructure. A restructure of any organization starts with firing, pretty much always. Without exception, it starts with firing.
Is a bit more stable. They'll just have to do obviously non-stupid things like say Asmodee. They are going to be there.
Bro, Yongya is probably looking at this and foaming at the mouth. How dare they fire people? And also at the same sentence he's gonna see, oh, how dare they fire people, but you need to cut on development costs and make these budgets smaller for games. Oh, what a clown.
Their own thing, but they also do heavily rely on Lord of the Rings licensing. That should, probably not be interrupted. But there is another option that we do have to consider here. Do you remember what happened to Relic Entertainment when they split from Sega? Again, if you're not up to speed with that, basically Sega was really trying to cut down on their Europe costs. That led to Creative Assembly having a bunch of job cuts. As for Relic, though, who developed things like Company of Heroes, Dawn of War, like they're a legendary developer, what happened there is Relic was actually profitable. But it was becoming less profitable over time, and they basically decided that rather than shut Relic down, they'll just let them go independent and I suppose structure some sort of deal to allow that to be a thing. So in that case, the company became independent, and that did mean that it could no longer rely on its funding relationship, which is one of the main benefits of being part of a big group, be that being owned by a publisher, be that this kind of like mega conglomerate situation. And unfortunately, what that meant for Relic was they had more layoffs post going independent. Now, Embracer was already cutting studios and teams to
it never ends, does it?
The bone in order to be efficient and cost effective, but now that we've got three companies that have got to survive without, say, Asmodee having regular good performance or the Lord of the Rings license sort of helping, could actually some things go worse, because these are not going to be privately held companies that can just say, listen, we have the cash, or we can maybe, raise the debt to weather the storm.
They're already not privately owned companies. If they were, you couldn't just scoop them up like this.
We'll be fine. We have a good long-term vision. These are still going to be public.
I'm assuming this is all publicly traded, by the way, because it can be a privately held company and still someone from outside can own 40% of it.
Listed companies with many of the very same shareholders, and that does mean that this is not the same as Saber Interactive going private. It is in fact worse than that. These will all still have to be profitable to demonstrate their profitability, but also to do that on a
okay, so top 10, others 30. This is the distribution of rights, how much you can actually do in a company. So S3D Media Inc. Savvy Gaming Group. Okay, well, Lars Wingforts is, yeah. He has the biggest say currently. But you know, there is 32% of this available in others, so someone can buy it out. Even though it looks like Lars is probably looking to buy them out himself. That's most likely the thing, because he doesn't want to lose control of this stuff. Most likely, but if he does, that's a red flag. If Lars dips, that is a red flag. Now, admittedly, Lars can dip in a way that, you know, no one's even gonna go after him. If, like, for example, these guys, or these guys, you know, anyone at the top tries to acquire it when it becomes more profitable, then Lars can dip and it's gonna be fine. So there are a couple of things under big question mark here, but I mean, there are things that are always under question mark in companies like this.
Quarterly
So
cycle,
it's not unique.
as opposed to if they're just a completely privately owned thing, in which case it's just purely up to the management and they don't really have, you could say, as many kind of like corrupting or polluting.
Oh wait, they are definitely publicly, you can definitely find their stock online, can you not? Because this is Embracer A and this is Embracer B. So yeah, this makes suddenly sense. Okay, so they should be somewhere on the stock market.
Case, it's just purely up to the management and they don't really have, you could say, as many kind of like corrupting or polluting incentives. Ultimately though, that's the core story for today. The Embracer Group was
great stuff, Belliard. Doesn't look like Embracer is dead though. Looks like they're doing quite fine and could be making it big maybe if lucky. Again, it's gonna completely depend on do they actually make a game that's good or whatever, but you know, who knows. Anyway, that was Belliard News. This was Quizzer Said saying thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Have a nice day. Bye.